Hey guys, this is kind of a sad day. It's one of my favorite days of the year, but unfortunately I decided to just make an announcement. After logging in and seeing that my boost has expired, I figured it was time to really rethink playing Heroes of the Storm. And Heroes of the Storm has been really stressful lately. They've been doing a lot of different changes, and it's just a lot of them can be good, some of them can be bad, and it's just adding a lot of stress. And hearing that they're releasing Deathwing as the next hero in the game, I just don't know if I want to deal with this anymore, as Deathwing is the most overrated character in the Blizzard universe. So I will be quitting Heroes of the Storm, and I do have a few announcements that I want to make at the end of this video that kind of shares the direction that this channel is going to be going. But I do want to quit Heroes of the Storm, and in this case we will also be uninstalling the game, and going from there we will be moving on to a different direction. And this direction is we're going to be making bonsai trees on this channel now. Bonsai trees are these little trees, and they're just really a passion of mine that I really want to get into for everyone to experience the same thing. I got you guys into this passion of Heroes of the Storm, and now you're going to see this passion of bonsai trees. Now, I do have a tutorial that will be coming up right after this, so you can follow along and make your own bonsai trees. I'll show you two different styles. There are a few things. This one is the first one that I've done, so there will be some audio things going on. The editing's not going to be great. I still need to practice around with our cameras and everything like that. So just know it won't be perfect, but you will learn how to make a bonsai tree by the end of this video. And at the very end of this video, remember guys, I have two more announcements, so please make sure that you watch the entire thing before you are done. So let's get right into it. Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about how to make your own bonsai tree. I've got two trees for you today. Now, these are both actually Japanese junipers. I'm not going to be trimming both of these today. I do have another tree. So if you just keep watching the whole thing, you'll get to see one that's really, really cool. I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek on this one. It is really, really neat. So make sure to watch the entire video as we go through, and we'll get to that tree as well. But we want to start off with the traditional bonsai tree, and I want to talk about the things that you need to start off. So the most important thing that you're ever going to need are clippers. You can use old scissors, but the big thing that you really want to be doing is you want clippers that can get really into the plant and get very specific things. So try to buy, or at least have decent scissors if you can. But good clippers usually are, I don't know, about $15, and that will likely be the most expensive thing that you purchase for the bonsai, unless you want to get really professional with some of the nicer bonsai trays that are coated and they're really nice. Those can run up to $50, $60 depending on the size of them. But I usually recommend people just go to Target and you just pick up a $2 to $3 bowl, and then you just fill up the bottom half of it with rocks so that it keeps all of the soil a little bit higher and it'll dry out a lot faster. So you can pretty much just water the top half and then it'll dry up really quickly. So that's usually what I recommend, and you can save a lot of money. These plants, however, can be a little tricky to find. It really depends on where you live, on which ones you're gonna be able to find. The traditional bonsai that you're going to see are either Japanese junipers or Chinese junipers. With the exception, there's green man junipers, which you can find as well. They're very similar to these. They just usually have a little bit of brighter colors or bluer colors on the top. But this is the traditional one that you'll find. I can usually find these at Lowe's. If you live in the United States, you're going to find Lowe's pretty much anywhere in the United States, and you can find them for about $4 to $8 at Lowe's. If you have any other nurseries around your area, you can ask about them, and sometimes they'll order them. So that's what we're going to be starting with. What you want to look for is, if we were to look at both of these plants, we would be looking underneath it and try to find if we can see the trunk. Now it's going to be really hard because there's shadows in here, but you want to kind of shine a light in there and see if you can find any trunk in there that looks kind of like a tree trunk. What we're trying to do, if you ever want to know, the word bonsai or bonsai is a Japanese word that means tree in a pot or tree on a tray. And so we're trying to make a shrub or a bush look exactly like a tree, but in a pot. So always remember, respect the bush, but we do need to get through and find out. So on this particular one, we can see a really good trunk in there. It looks just like a tree. They do have some really cool curves in here, which would be a really neat bonsai. So we're actually going to just start on this particular one, and we're going to just set this one down for now. I'm going to actually put it back in its tray, or in its pot that I got it in, and we will start off on this one. So the first thing you always want to do is just kind of figure out which direction you're going to be looking at it from, and sometimes you can't figure that out until you've cleaned it up a little bit. So we're going to get right in there and start cleaning this up. The goal that I try to look for is plants tend not to have branches that go lower than their trunk. So if you see any branches that are going downward, or if you see any branches that are lower, those are pretty safe to cut right away, as you want to be able to reveal this trunk as much as you can. So you're going to see the start of this is pretty much me just cleaning up a lot of these extra ones. And because there's a lot of Chinese and Japanese history behind bonsai trees, I'm going to be reading to you guys a proverb about every few trims that I do. And I want to start off because these are really pokey, and I usually recommend having a nice thick set of gloves on when you're going through here. So I wanted to start off, the more you sweat in battle, the more you sweat in practice, the less you sweat in battle. And so as we're going through, we're going to try to get rid of all of these smaller branches that are on the bottom. We really just want to clear up any of this bottom area. Once we can do that, we'll be able to see this trunk really clear. Any of these extra ones over here, we can trim these off if we want to right away, but I'm not going to, only because I really want to see where I want to put this first and what it's going to look like first before I start trimming any of the major ones. So,
hello, this is NotParadox's Inner Thoughts. I will be guiding you through the fast-forwarded portions of this tutorial. I'll start off by mentioning that I misquoted that last Chinese proverb. It is, the more you sweat in practice, the less you bleed in battle. Which is kind of ironic, since I ended up bleeding after doing this tutorial. Right now, I'm going through and cleaning up all of the smaller branches that are in this bonsai, and the goal here is to show the bottom portion of the plant, as well as just clean up the busyness of this plant. Some things that you can see is this giant root ball that is underneath it, and there are little white specks in there. That is a form of plant food, sometimes little rocks, but most of the time plant foods. You sometimes want to get a lot of that out because when you're making bonsai, you don't want as much plant food. Anyways, have fun on the rest of this tutorial, and you'll hear my inner thoughts once again.
okay, so when you get to this point where you have the majority of the bottom part of the tree that is clipped and you can visually see what the branches look like, this is when you decide which branches you want to keep and what direction you want to be looking at a bonsai tree. If you see bonsai trees, they're usually in a tray that sits like this, and you will always be looking at it from one direction, which means that you kind of want to have the front, you can visually see all of the branches, and then the back kind of just adds a lot of green to it. So we're going to want to do something like that where we look for the front, and I think this is a great angle for the front. You can see that I did cut some major pieces that look a little white right now. As the plant grows, these will harden over and it will look really nice. So right now it looks a little clipped, but we're going to probably trim even more. I just need to decide which ones I want to keep. And if you're looking at it from the front, you always want to just try to pick out any of these. So you can see right now I have this one that's just kind of covering a lot of the rest of the tree. So we're going to start off by cutting this. And now we can see it reveals a lot more of the tree, and we have two real directions that this tree is going. A lot of times what people recommend when you're making a bonsai tree is make it go really high a little bit and then start branching off in other sides. But sometimes you want to make a tree look a little unbelievable, because that's part of the fun of a bonsai tree, is you get to create whatever you want to. And that reminds me, it's not just a tree in a pot, but it's also just art. And there's a Chinese proverb for that, which is essentially, there's art everywhere, but only some see it. So now when you hit this point of the bonsai, you need to be very cautious about it. We've got kind of the shape that we want, but we will want to clear up a lot of this extra stuff. It just looks really busy at the moment. And you gotta be careful, because if you cut something, you can't go back. So another Chinese proverb, a little impatience will spoil great plans, or in this case, plants. So what we want to do is we want to kind of look at what a tree has on it that this doesn't have, or vice versa. In this particular case, this has these right down here, and most trees don't ever have leaves that go in between like this. So we want to clean up everything that's around these bottom bush areas and make it look more like a tree that's just growing in weird directions. So you can see a lot of what I'm going to be doing here is I'm just going to be cutting down the bottom sections and see if I can't clean it up just a little bit, make it to where it looks a little bit more reasonable and a little bit more like a tree, because of these, all these little pieces aren't there. And these regrow quite a lot. So these are going to be the areas that you're going to want to work on it for quite a while. And there's actually a lot of studies out there that show that not just gardening, but planting bonsais in general are a great tool to help with anxiety, depression, so and really just overall mental health, happiness. So having one of these and constantly making sure that it's okay, just checking these, watching to see if there's these little areas that might grow, and then just kind of adjusting from there is not just a fun activity for the first time, but overall it can be something that really helps out in the long run as well. So I would recommend just watching your bonsai tree. Every time you water it, just see if there's any little pieces that look a little off. And as we're cleaning it up, you can see that we're revealing a lot more of this trunk in there. And we can see it kind of goes off in two directions. And while most trees don't do that, in fact, there's actually a tree right behind the camera person that does exactly this. But most trees we see don't really do this, but I actually really like this style, so we're gonna just stick with it. We're just gonna clean up a lot of the smaller little pieces on here to where it looks like it just grew without having a lot of branch offs. And we should be looking pretty good. And again, a lot of these white parts where I'm cutting, those will all heal over and it will grow into looking like a pretty solid bonsai tree. So because I really like the style of it coming out to this one side, I want to keep this, but I feel like I want to draw more attention to this because I want it to come down off the side of the bowl. So I'm going to let this keep growing over here, but I may take out some of the pieces that are growing a little too high so it can focus on growing a little bit straight forward. And I'll talk about the fact that you can actually prune these by simply just twisting if you do pick up any of the juniper varieties. So it can be a nice way to even out the top of this, and it's just kind of a fun thing to really look at the plant as it grows and make sure to take off the pieces that are growing in areas that you don't want it to grow in. So we're just going to take off a little bit more in here, but I want to leave all this growing down that way. And I want to round this off a little bit. You're going to see a lot of bonsai trees that either have a flat top or a rounded top. We're going to kind of go for a rounded top up here. So we're going to take off some of these extra areas. I don't really want it to grow off in this direction too much. And we can see at the moment, this is kind of that flat top style. And we may end up just, actually I may keep it as a flat top. It is looking pretty good. And I do recommend doing the pinch method when we're trying to prune up at the top, just because it looks a little bit more natural. If you just chop off all the top, then you're going to see a lot of these hard chops. But if you actually just twist it off, it's going to twist off at usually a branching point, and it will look really nice. So yeah, actually, we're going to stick with a flat top method for this one. I was going to go with rounded, but I'm really liking the flat top look. So pretty much that's going to be a good start for this one. I'm going to turn it around and just clean up some of the little ones. And again, we just kind of pull them from the bottom a little bit, find where their branches are, and just take them apart. We can see the back of this has a really nice curve to it. We don't really need to cut anything in the back. Remember, we're only looking at it from one side, so we really only need to cut what we visually see. Everything else is just extra. And it's not really worth it to keep cutting this over and over and over when it's in the back, unless we feel we really need to.
Inner thoughts here. I'm just realizing that that lamp behind me is off. It's skewed a little to the side. Honestly, it hasn't worked since I've moved in here anyways, so I guess I never really noticed it.
Make sure to watch whenever you're moving around with hands on both sides of the tree. Make sure you don't cut yourself, because this is supposed to be a relaxing hobby and not a hobby that brings you to the hospital. That's kind of the opposite of what we're looking for here. And don't be afraid to move them around, especially if you have junipers. Junipers are really hardy plants, and they can deal with you moving them around a little bit and really pushing them. So don't worry about damaging these. Now, the next plant I will show you is a little bit more, it's not as hardy. So we'll have to approach it at a different way, but we're just gonna cut some of these down here. And there we go. So we've got a pretty good sized tree at the moment. We've got it showing the branches in a bunch of different directions, and it's growing off in a lot of different directions. We have a lot of green showing up in many different ways. We could clear up some of this in here. I actually just want to leave it exactly how it is. We may end up just, again, making it a little bit more flat on the top, but we don't need to commit too much into this, and this could be something that I can prune a little bit further. So this is really where we're going to leave this tree at the moment, and we're going to go into the planting process.
Let's see, 4 cups flour, 2 cups sugar, and oh, Inner Thoughts back once again. And we are currently in the potting process. As we are potting this, we will be covering the soil on top and also some fresh soil on bottom, as we just removed all of the extra older soil that was already in there. This will make sure that the plants will have more nutrients and the bonsai will lay flat just where we want it to be. So I am probably making up some random dialogue on how I got sponsored by Miracle Grow. Honestly, it was a joke that wasn't that funny, and that's why I had to cut it. So good thing that I ended up cutting that.
Getting this going. So I'm just gonna put a little bit in there. We're gonna move it around based off of where we need it to be. This is probably a lot more than we need. And sometimes what I like to do is, if I'm gonna put the tree on one side, I'm going to even it out on that side. But I'm also going to add some water and just get some moisture in here, because this is going to start really impacting as it gets wet, and we don't want it to do that and change the look of everything. So we're going to do this just a little bit ahead of time, move it around.
Vanilla becoming the default flavor of ice cream is probably the greatest underdog story of all time. Oh, hey guys. So right here, we are pretty much just repotting again. We have all the new soil in there. We're going to be adding in some fresh soil. We are kind of cleaning it off at the same time. I did get actually quite a few little caterpillars and bugs that were in there. You might see me trying to take those out. I like to put the tree a little askew, especially when you have a tree that looks like this, where you've got this nice thing that goes off the side. And it's just a really fascinating way to deal with this. Make sure that you've got all this nice colors, great soil, and we'll end up covering that with some rocks mostly.
So here's the general basis of what your bonsai tree is going to look like. You can get rid of some of the roots if you have extra roots. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll clean up down here too, underneath the roots, get rid of all this stuff. But a lot of people like to decorate their bonsai tree area. So what I recommend is have a little bit of a rock collection. If there's any types of rocks that you like, then I recommend putting those in there as well. Sometimes I put them closer in the front, but we also don't want to kind of obscure the trunk. So in this case, we might just be putting these off in the back. And so we may put, actually let's put them over here for now. So we've got some fun rocks over here. We might even do a little bit of a river look on the front. I don't know if we want to use these kind of unnatural looked ones. Again, this is more of a natural bonsai, so we might just get some more of these natural ones. These rocks right here, $4. So all in all, this entire bonsai, if I used a bowl instead, would be under $20 for the entire thing. With the exception of maybe the clippers. So you can add any sort of rocks, any design that you want. If you just want a more traditional look, you can leave the bonsai exactly how it is. But I personally like to have just a little bit of rocks in there. I feel it just kind of adds to the look Makes it feel almost like there's a bit of a river. And I don't know, it's just something that I like. And there we go. So that is where we're going to stop with this particular one.
Do you think Malfurion's tree ant would like to be sprayed with a water bottle? I would think so.
You're gonna show what it looks like, you're gonna water it, because it's gonna remind them, and you will have some pretty cool designs from some of these rocks, because rocks oftentimes look really neat when they get wet. You have that shiny surface, you have all of the dirt that's kind of come off of it, maybe a little bit of droplets that are left on the rocks. You just have a really cool look. So this is likely where I'm going to leave this one off, but just gives you a general idea of how fast you can make a bonsai tree, how interesting you can make them if you really want to, and you can add anything that you really want to them. So that is probably where we're going to leave that one off for now. I'm going to let it grow a little bit. I'm going to let it heal in these couple areas, make sure that it likes its new area that it's in, and then we might start rounding it off or letting it grow further down in that direction. So when working on bonsai trees, you don't need to stick to the traditional look. And this is one of the things that I really got into when I started bonsai tree. Was I was always looking for, I wanted that traditional look. I wanted the little tiny leaves and everything. And I was going through kind of a rough part of my life, and I found these little trees. They're called bougainvillea or bougainvillea. And if you can find these, they have these really cool flowers and leaves, and they just have a lot of color. So if you can find these and you can take care of these, they are a lot of fun. And the cool part about these is it takes the leaves a long time to grow to this size. So if you keep tearing apart the leaves, what'll happen is you take off a leaf and it'll start growing little leaves instead, so you can keep the leaves really tiny. And there are also varieties of this plant that just have smaller leaves in general. So if you can find those, even better. But they usually have really strong trunks, so we are going to start off by clearing these. And guys, I really want you to try this out. It's usually really inexpensive to start off. You can even just find shrubs from in the middle of nowhere and start planting them and start trimming them and taking care of them. Yes, there are some advanced techniques like using wiring, but Chinese proverb time, your teacher can open the door, but you must enter by yourself. So keep that in mind, because I can only do so much here. I will tell you that it's a really fun thing to do. It's really great for your mental health, but it is a little bit of effort. And so to start this one off, we're going to start it the same way that we did before. We're just going to clear off things that are a little bit lower, try to reveal some of these, the trunk that's in here, some of the lower branches.
Labeling something military grade makes it seem so high quality, unless it's food. Oh, so we're back. The major thing that I'm going to be doing here is just cleaning this up. This particular moment is really the longest one that I fast forwarded because I just was ranting and rambling over and over and over, and it ended up being just this really long thing because I just kept ranting and rambling and going on and on and on. Sort of like this. I guess that's kind of a problem of mine, that I rant too much. Go off on random topics and just kind of ramble for really too long. You know, if we ever colonized Mars, the reduced gravity would cause humans to be physically weaker. So we would probably use Martian as an insult synonymous with weakling. Huh. Kind of interesting. Anyways, so on this, one of the things that I do is I will put my hand over here to see what the plant looks like without that branch being there. In this case, I put my hand there. I didn't really like the branch being there, and I chopped it off. Now, with these small scissors that I have, it can be a little challenging. You may want to get some larger ones if you will be working with larger plants. And you can see that giant green circle from where that branch was. And that green circle there, you can put some rooting compound on that to make it heal a little bit faster. When I first started, I purchased rooting compound. It was like $10, and I was putting it on every little area that I cut. And as I started making these trees more often, I realized that that didn't really matter at all, and it didn't make much difference. So I stopped buying rooting compound, and I kind of just went on to just letting it heal naturally. And the majority of these plants heal naturally most of the time, so I didn't really ever need to worry about this again. But yeah, This particular section, I've actually fast forwarded much more than the other sections. When I said I was rambling, I was not kidding. I got on a subject that I talked about for a good like 15 minutes, and I've sped this thing up a lot. But yeah, and as we can see, there's a finger there, top left corner. We'll give some props to our camera person, as it was a volunteer. I did not pay them, and they had to get through this really great tutorial and record throughout my entire rant that I want to say it had something to do with moissanite versus diamonds. I can't really remember, but if you guys have never heard about moissanite, it's a really cool thing, and it should be used instead of diamonds. I mean, the diamond trade is a terrible industry, and moissanite is brighter, and it's just better. Okay, you know what? Never mind. I'm not going to get into it right now. You can see in here, I am just cleaning up a lot of this extra soil, and I'm getting rid of as much as I possibly can as the camera's going around a little bit, and I'm getting a little tired.
And remember, guys, learning is a treasure that will follow its owner everywhere.
Come on, Paradox. That one was pretty lame. We've got to admit, that was a pretty corny one. Learning will follow the owner everywhere. Psh, just dumb. But right here, you can see I'm just chopping down the roots. The roots are really thick on the bottom, so every time I place the plant down, it's not laying flat. So I just simply go through, cut it with the same clippers that I've been using, and I try to push it down a little bit to see if maybe the soil will still look good. And on this case, I realized that I'm going to have to just let the plant get used to growing wide instead of tall. So I decided to just plant it as is, and then I will go through and maybe replant this one later once the roots get more used to growing wider rather than taller. So it should look pretty good once all of that's done.
So guys, when you're making your bonsai trees, it's all up to you. The art's all up to you. I recommend trying out, instead of just putting it directly in the middle, I usually like putting it off to a side, letting it flow over. Sometimes flow over the bowl, sometimes just flow over the edge of everything else. It's all how you want to handle it.
The larger you are, the more likely you are to win Spin the Bottle. Alright, my thoughts get away from me sometimes, but I just really wanted to explain in this area. The big thing that you want to be doing is just show however you want to do. I'm using these rocks that I picked up, and I rather like these rocks. So, and it matches the bowl as well. So this bowl I also picked up at Target. It was not very expensive. The rock I found outside, stole it from my neighbor. Not too expensive either, unless you get caught. And then all of these little rocks you can pick up at any craft store for pretty cheap. From there, spray it. You know all plants like being sprayed. We were learning about this earlier, or at least thinking about this earlier. And then you can kind of just spin this around to see what it looks like at all angles.
We've got ourselves a really cool bonsai tree that can be viewed from really any direction that you want to view it from. And we've got just a nice rock. Again, would probably clean this up over here. Maybe even add in some more rocks back here. I don't think I have any extras now. But you could definitely add in some more rocks in the back so people can see it. This would be really neat if you had it in the middle of your backyard and people just could see it from anywhere that they went to. These are outdoor plants. That's one thing that I would say. And another thing that I'd say is if you're ever doing this, just be a little cautious, as a lot of these are plants with hardy trunks and branches. So you can get cut. I got cut while doing this one, and I am bleeding. So my earlier point about practice so you don't bleed during battle, I am bleeding during battle. Also, I normally wear gloves. So I would recommend either using, if you're working with kids, there's trees that are usually called money trees. They are already kind of set up in a cool design and you just need to replant them. That's what I would recommend for kids. And if you're kind of getting into this your first time, I would really recommend picking up a pair of gardening gloves. Today is a really fun day. It is one of my favorite days of the year. It's a really important day. Something else I wanted to mention about today, but I can't remember it right now. So thank you guys so much for watching, and feel free to check out all of my other videos.
Alright guys, you gotta give me a little bit of a round of applause. If this is not one of the coolest April Fool's jokes where you actually get to learn something new, then I don't know what is. But this is an April Fool's joke. I'm still going to be playing Here's the Storm. As long as you guys are around, I'm still going to be making videos for it. It might drop down a little bit as I start pushing out a little bit more psychology ones, which brings up my second announcement. But the first announcement, as you guys already know, it's April Fool's Day. Have fun. Happy April Fools, whatever. Keep it all fun. Make sure that the pranks are not damaging by any means. And the second announcement is that I do still have this Psychology of Heroes of the Storm video that I'm working on. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. We ended up with 2,029 responses. That is 4 times as many as I was hoping for, which I can't ask for anything more than that. That is so awesome. So thank you guys all for that. This is the second announcement, is that I will be working on this and trying to get this video out within the next week or so. And finally, guys, it's the, while this was an April Fool's joke, for anyone out there that's ever been interested in having a bonsai tree, go out and try it. I would love to see, I mean, I love it when people message me and they say, oh, well, this video helped me because of this or whatever. But if you guys do end up making a bonsai tree following this video, shoot me a message. I'd be really curious. I'd like to see if anyone actually goes out there and does this. I think, again, it's an April Fool's joke, but it is actually still pretty nice. It did help with mental health for a lot of people. So if that is something that you end up doing, shoot me a message. Send me a picture of your bonsai tree. I'd like to see it. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching, and feel free to check out my April Fool's video from last year where I showed everyone how to get Easy Grandmaster. And again, just a thank you to everyone who's been hanging out for the last year since I brought back my channel. It's been growing quickly, and it's just been a ton of fun. So thank you all, and you guys have a great April Fool's Day.